what he was knowing.
Seti's particular obsession is this temple at Abydos. She firmly believes she lived here in a previous existence more than 3,000 years ago.
There's one odd story. When I was 3 years old, I fell downstairs. And it was knocked unconscious. My parents fetched the doctor, who examined me very carefully and said I was dead. And as I was the one and only, and the apple of my mother's eye, I mean, she went off the deep end and everybody was fussing around her. I was left in my room lying on the bed. And then the doctor said he'd return in an hour with a nurse to watch the body and the death certificate, which he did. When he came back to the baths and went into my room, the dead body was sitting on the bed flowing from the mouth. I dreamt about it not as a ruin, but as a going concern. Well, it wasn't until I was about 6, and I saw a photograph of this temple in a magazine. But of course, as it is, now ruined. Once I recognized this place. This was the place where I was dreaming of, and it was my home. Also, a photo of the mummy of Priestess Eady. I knew that man. He's a nice man, good, kind man. Of course, I was assured that I never did know him. And of course, when my father explained to me about what the temple was and where it was, well, that explained to me why I wanted to go there and was able to, because it wasn't where I am, or I wasn't where it was.
Coastal Bend in Corpus Christi, Texas. And you're listening to the Alien Strand podcast with Donald Ledesma. Buying or selling, visit me at kellygreenrealtor.com or visit me on my Facebook page, Kelly Green Realtor. See you there.
Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Alien Strand podcast. I'm your host, Donald Ledesma. And welcome to today's show. It's going to be another great one, that's for sure. But before we get going, I just want to welcome everybody to Alien Strand Podcast. You can find us on 24, 25 now, 26 platforms. Yeah, we're growing every day. And I just want to thank everybody for that, for listening to the show, sharing it out there, getting it out to your friends, and just passing the information along, because that's what Alien Strand is all about. It's about the information, right? And you know, you can catch us on Tumblr, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, and alienstrand.com. I just updated a little bit of alienstrand.com there. So if you want to go check out the page there, very interesting stuff there. You know, it just shows pictures of a lot of aliens, UFOs. There's a whole segment on Bigfoot there. And, you know, of course, if you want to report a UFO, it's there on the front page. And, you know, if you want to see who the team members, right now it's myself and Terry Lynch, you know, as far as the Alien Strand team, and we're growing every day. But if you want to, just check us out there. Again, if you want to be on the show, you can just call 361-245-8000. Again, it's 361-245-8000. If you want to be a guest on the show, you got stories, anything, an abduction, Bigfoot encounter, anything, aliens, paranormal, you give us a call and we'll get you on the show, right? You want to get some stories out there. So, you know, and we've had some past really, really good podcasts. These past ones that just passed us by, right? And, the one that I had before this one was number 72, right? And that was the alien implant. So I did a really big, kind of lengthy story about alien implants and what they're all about, right? So if you want to go check that out, it's a very good. I got a really lot of good reviews on that one. So and I thank you guys for that. Thank you, Paul Wilburn over there in the UK, for giving me a great review on that. And David, Aleph, everybody that's out there, all my good friends, Ani Ball, he really loved that story. He put it out on Extraterrestrial Strange Happenings group. And of course, we have Terry Lynch as well. Of course, he's spreading Alien Strand all over the place. And that's what it's about. We all work together, and that alien implants was a very good podcast. That was number 72. And then number 71, the meeting, that was a really good story out in Brazil. So if you guys have a chance, go check those out. And even number 70, Conscious Contact. I had some guys that made a documentary, good friends of mine, and they were able to get their information there on that podcast, number 70. So if you have a chance, go check that out. And we have a really nice conversation. It's even posted on YouTube, so you can actually see the video of our actual conversation there. So, but, I just wanted to bring everybody in and just kind of welcome you to the show. And I know I promised to get one every week, but that damn flu-rona, it got us all a little bit like a little head cold. And I think it's been getting everybody now, So I'm still suffering with it just a little bit. So bear with my voice. And, I'm just going to try to get the information out as best as I can today, because I know I made a promise and I'm getting it out to you. Like I said, if you want to go to check out all our UFOs and everything that I post, I did actually post a really nice photo of a Bigfoot or a Yeti, and I think that was up there in the Russian area. So, and it was a huge white one. I believe somebody commented on there. It possibly could be 8 to 9 feet tall. So, if you have a chance, check out that photo. It's a great photo on that Bigfoot, Yeti, or Sasquatch, right? That's what we call them here in the States. And of course, there's a lot of nice UFO activities up in the sky. I always say keep your eyes in the sky, right? Keep your hands on the wheel, though. If you do spot one up there in the sky, pull over, be safe, roll down your window, take the photo or video, or step out of the vehicle. Please don't do it inside of the vehicle with the glass, because that always causes conflicts as far as breaking these things down, right? As far as getting the analyzations correct on them. We just want to make sure it's not a smear or a bug in the window or something reflecting off your dashboard. Okay, so let's just go ahead and do that. And if you guys can please do that, be safe, and please set your cameras to stabilization if you can, and that way you can get a lot of those things properly set on your cameras. But today is going to be a really, really good story, and I always want to bring out something new or something different. I always talk about, of course, alien abductions, which is my topmost. It's about 80% of the stories that are here on Alien Strand, and that's what I love to focus and concentrate on, right? I do a lot of that, and it's just one of those things that it intrigues me a lot. But I still have the other things as far as UFOs and paranormal, Bigfoot, and things of the unknown that we just don't think about every day, and that we have to get the information out to everybody, right? And that's what I'm about here, and I was trying to get the stories out, and then I came across this story that I had heard before, but I didn't really get to get involved in it or read it as much as I did. And I really, really, enjoyed the story that I read on this person. And, I just thought that it was important to get the information out, and her story, right? So here today, I'm going to try to get this podcast out and all the information as much as possible. And it has a lot to do, actually, with Egypt, right? And the pharaohs, right? Everything that happened around the 12th century BC. You know, and we don't get to talk about Egypt too much here. I've mentioned it one time, I believe, on one of my earlier podcasts. And actually, I love that subject because it has a lot of historical value, you know, to what and how people lived. And they were able to put all their information down as far as hieroglyphs, right? And they were able to get their stories out, right? And that's what intrigued a lot of people back in the day when they first started to try to decipher everything, right? And then this story comes along that was kind of hidden in the background, right? That people just didn't know about as much. So I came across it, and today's podcast is going to be number 73, and I called it Far From Home because there's a reason for it. So there was this young woman back in the day. Her name is Dorothy Eady. And to the people there in Egypt, when later on, she was also known as Seti. That's Ommsety, right? Or Omseti. And that's what they called her. And there's a reason for it. And I'm going to give you her story. You heard a little bit of it at the beginning of this podcast. So she was born in January 16th, 1904. She passed away on April 21st, 1981. So she was a British antiques caretaker and folklorist, right? She was a keeper of the Abydos temple of the Seti the First, and daughter's-woman for the Department of the Egyptian Antiquities. She's also known for her belief in a previous life, that she had been a priestess in ancient Egypt. And as well as her considerable historical research at Abydos. Her life and work has been a subject of many articles, television documentaries, and biographies, right? So this is what grabbed my attention. Dorothy's earlier life. She was born in London in 1904. She was the child of Reuben Ernest Eady, a master tailor born in Woolwich, and Carolyn Mary Eady, raised in a coastal town. At the age of 3, after falling down a flight of stairs, talking about Dorothy here, and briefly appearing to be dead. They said she had been exhibiting strange behaviors and asking that she be brought home. This is the earlier story of it, right? And we'll get more into detail on that. So later, after she recovered, her parents took her to visit the British Museum on observing a photograph of the New Kingdom Temple exhibits room. At the time, Dorothy was young. She cried out, "There's my home." "But where are the trees?" she says. "Where are the gardens?" The temple was of Seti I, the father of Ramses the Great. They said she ran about the halls of the Egyptian rooms amongst her people, she says, kissing the statue's feet. After this trip, she took the opportunity to visit the British Museum rooms. There, later, she eventually met E.A. Wallace Budge, who was taken by her youthful enthusiasm and encouraged her to study hieroglyphs, right? But right there, they noticed that she was special, right? In a sense, because she took strong interest in the Egyptian culture of the past. Later, again, after a close escape from bombing raid in World War I, she moved to her grandmother's house there in Sussex. There she continued to study ancient Egypt at the Eastbourne Public Library, right? She's doing this all on her own. When she was 15, she described a nocturnal visit of the mummy of the pharaoh Seti I. Her behavior, coupled with sleep several times, she says. She says she was like walking nightmares. Led her to be incarcerated in sanitariums several times. Later, she left school at 16. She would visit museums, archaeological sites around Britain, facilitated by her father. Did investigations into the nationwide booming cinema industry, so that's what her father was doing, right? Later, again, Dorothy became a student of the Plymouth Art School and began to collect affordable Egyptian antiquities, right? She was really getting into this. And she just couldn't get these thoughts and these nightmares at times out of her mind. So it was like, in a sense, consuming her in a sense, right? It was by the age of 16. Now, she's 27. She began working in the London Egyptian Public Relations magazine. She wrote articles and drew cartoons that reflected political support for independent Egypt. During this period, she met her husband, Imam Abdel Magid, who was an Egyptian student, whom she continued to correspond when he returned home, right? She met this man. And I think that's probably where she believed that was her way to get there. Fell in love. So in 1931, she decided to move to Egypt with her husband. By now, he's a teacher of English. When they arrived to Egypt, she kissed the ground and announced she had come home to stay. She said they stayed in Cairo, and her husband's family gave her the name Bulbul, which means nightingale. They also had a son. She named this son Seti as well. Which is derived from the popular name Seti, which Seti, which is her name, what they gave her, means mother of Seti. after she had a chance to meet with George Reisner's secretary, who commented on her apparent ability to charm snakes and told her that spells on such powers were in ancient Egyptian literature. Seti visited the 5th dynasty pyramid of Unas. Klaus Baer recalled her piety when she accompanied him to visit Saqqara in the early 1950s. There, she brought an offering book, took her shoes off before entering the Unas pyramid. She continued to report apparitions of out-of-body experiences during this time, which caused friction with the upper middle-class family she was married into. So that gave her a lot of issues during her marriage because of the things she was saying. People still didn't believe of what she was saying. And this is the story, a little bit more detail on her past life, what she claims. She says she got visited by Hora. Hora is the god of kingship and the sky. Ra is a horse of 2 horizons. All forms of life were created by Ra. This is the Egyptian folklore back then. They said the sweat and tears is what made the people of Ra. And the people were cattle of Ra. The reason I'm mentioning Hora, because during the early period, she reported nighttime visitations by an apparition of Hora. He slowly dictated to her over a 12-month period the story of her previous life. The story took around 70 pages of cursive hieroglyphic text. It described the life of a young woman in ancient Egypt, Albinthrit, who had been reincarnated in a person of Dorothy Eady. Bithrit, which means harp of joy, is described in this text as being of a humble origin. Said her mother was a vegetable seller and her father was a soldier during the reign of Seti I. And the reign of Seti I was from 1290 BC through 1279 BC. Story goes, when she was 3, her mother died. She was placed in the temple Qam el Sultan because her father could not afford her. There, she was brought up to be a priestess. When she was 12 years old, the high priest asked her if she wished to go out into the world or stay and become a consecrated virgin. In the absence, the full understanding without a practical alternative, she took the vows. She decided to stay. During the next few years, she learned her role in the annual drama of Osiris, Passion, and Resurrection. Only a role only if a virgin priestess consecrated to Isis could perform. In other words, she's the only one that could perform this ritual. On the day of Seti I, visited and spoke to her. Later, they became lovers, eating the uncooked goose. Was an ancient Egyptian term that had been compared to eating the forbidden fruit. When Bethred became pregnant, she told the high priest who the father was. The high priest informed her that gravity of the offense against Isis was so terrible that death would be most likely the penalty at her trial. So unwilling to face the public scandal for Seti, she committed suicide rather than face trial. And this is the story of her past life. You know, for her to give all this information on exactly who she was at the time in a past life, and to say exactly what her job was at the time. So through her keen interest in antiquities, she met and befriended many famous Egyptianologists of the era. Seti made such significant contribution to Hassan's work that upon his death, she was employed by Ahmad Fakhri. During his excavations in Dashur, Hassan's magnum opus, the 10th volume, Excavations at Giza, gives special mention with sincere gratitude to Dorothy for her editing, drawing, indexing, proofreading work. She learned from the scholars the techniques of archaeology, while they benefited from her expertise in hieroglyphs and drawings, right? So she became a key person to decipher a lot of these, to help decipher a lot of these hieroglyphs. And during this time, she prayed, made frequent offerings to the gods of ancient Egypt. She would often spend nights in the Great Pyramid. Dorothy became an object of the village gossip. She would make night prayers and offerings to Horus at the Great Sphinx. Yet she was respected by the villagers for her honesty and not hiding her true faith in Egyptian gods. She was sensitive to the religious observance of others. She would fast with the Muslims, villagers at times of Ramadan. And then she would celebrate with Christians during Christmas. So later she moves to Abydos. March 3rd, 1956, the 52-year-old Seti left to Abydos. She set up home Narbat, Abydos, which sits the cradle of the mountain of the Pega, the Gap. The ancient Egyptians believed this mountain led to Amenti in the afterlife. And this is where she began to be called Seti, because It was customary for the Egyptian villagers to refer to a mother by the name of her eldest child. Abydos had a special significance for her because it's where she believed Besret had lived and served the temple of Seti. She made short pilgrimages to the site before and during she had demonstrated her knowledge of advanced knowledge. At one of these trips to the temple, the chief inspector from the antiquities department, who knew about her claims, decided to test her by asking her to stand in a particular wall painting in complete darkness. She was instructed to identify the base of her prior knowledge to the temple as a temple priestess. She completed the task successfully, even through the painting on locations that had not been published yet, right? So she proved them wrong. They didn't believe her of her past life. So she passed that test. For Dorothy, the Temple of Seti was a place of peace and serenity, where she was watched over by benevolent eyes of Egyptian gods. Seti claimed that her past life of Besret temple had a garden where she first met Seti the First. Her descriptions of a young girl were not believed by her parents. But while she was living in Abydos, the garden was found where she said it would be found. Excavations uncovered a garden which matched her descriptions. So again, she does this again. How does she know? So later in years, she's already reached the age of 60 in 1964. Seti, she was faced with retirement by the Antiquities Department. And it was advised to seek part-time work over there in Cairo. So she went to Cairo, but only stayed one day before returning to Abydos. The Antiquities Department decided to make an exception to their retirement age rules and allowed her to continue to work at Abydos for another 5 years until she retired in 1969. She had a pension of $30 per month. She's supplemented by needlework and sold to friends and tourists who bought gifts, clothes, and food and reading materials from her. So she didn't live this elaborate lifestyle. She was plain and simple. She wasn't there to try to make a buck or to sell a book. She spoke of Ramses II, the son of Seti I, whom she always saw as a teenager as Besret. Just knew him, right? She regarded him in a common with other Egyptologists as the most slandered of all of the pharaohs because of biblically derived accounts of describing him as the pharaoh of oppression and the slaughter of baby boys. traits which were contracted by contemporary records. Kenneth Kitchen, an expert in the period, considered a true Ramesside. He said, "There's a certain truth in her familiar approach, and that she came to all sorts of perfectly sensible conclusions about the actual objective material of the Seti temple," right? So again, she's on point. Dorothy Eady, she once said, "Death holds no terror for me. I just do my best to get through the judgment. I'm going to come before Osiris, who will probably give me a few dirty looks because I've known I've committed some things I shouldn't have. Because the Muslims and Christians who would not let a heathen be buried in their graveyards. Seti built her own underground tomb, decorated with a false door. Through this door, Ka was believed to travel between the world and the next. And it was engraved with an offering prayer in conformance with ancient beliefs. The staff of the Chicago house gave her an imitation Schwabi figurine to place in the tomb. On April 10th, 1981, she gave away her last two cats. As her condition deteriorated. On April 15th, she received a letter from Olivia Robertson confirming that Seti had been enrolled in the Fellowship of Isis. In her interfaith spiritual movement focused on the goddess. On March 23rd, on April 21st, 1981, Seti died in Abydos. The local health authority refused to allow her to be buried in a tomb she constructed. She was interred in an unmarked grave facing west in the desert outside of the Coptic cemetery. In the early 1970s, shortly after Nasar's death, Seti disclosed that she believed she knew the location of Nefertiti's tomb, but showed some reluctance in disclosing it because she says it's a most unlikely place because Seti I did not like Anunnaki for his attempt to suppress traditional Egyptians in religious practices. We don't want anything more of this family to be known, she says. She described the location of the tomb to being close to Tutankhamun's, which was the counter of then prevailing opinion that no more tombs would be found in the Valley of the Kings. So she refused to disclose burial place of Nefertiti. He was a very important person. Even today, they still cannot find her tomb. They say she disappeared. She had several daughters. Even her daughters disappeared. There's no more history on her. there was opinions on Dorothy. Carl Sagan considered Seti as a lively, intelligent, dedicated woman who made real contributions to Egyptology. This is true whether her belief in reincarnation is fact or fantasy. He viewed such phenomena as being rooted in fear of death, and the humankind has commonly sought reassurance in some form of afterlife. In 1987, a New York Times article described a biography of her as intriguing and convincing of modern case history of the belief in reincarnation. So this is the story of Dorothy Eady. Who endured not just the pain at 3 years old of being close to death or even in death, scrutinized later in life because of what she knew. Now, they asked Dorothy before she passed away. It's in an interview. I saw it. They asked her, "Now, I know you were 3 when you died. Do you think that possibly when you died, the spirit of Besrith entered your body and came back? Do you believe that that is a possibility?" And Dorothy says, "Yes, I believe that could be a possibility." I mean, her language changed right after that. She scrutinized in school because of everything. They didn't even want her in school. She was in a Christian Catholic school up there when she was little, and they would send her home because they said it wasn't her language was not proper. So as she grew up, even as a 6-year-old, 12-year-old, 16-year-old, 27-year-old, learning and learning and learning about ancient Egypt, saying, "One day I will live there. One day I will be there." And when she gets there, she kisses the ground and says, "I'm home. I'm home." Because of this, she was still scrutinized in a sense, even though she helped with the hieroglyphs, the drawings, the paintings, deciphering. Even in her death, she was scrutinized. Not that they didn't believe her. I believe that they just probably thought because of the time era and the time when she passed was 2 different things, right? And in a sense, like, you can't be this person because this person's been gone. So we can't bury you in their same ritual ways because we still don't know if you are Bethred, Dorothy, right? If you are Dorothy, you're British American, a British descent. But yet she did not want a Christian burial. She did not want a Muslim burial. She just wanted to be buried like an Egyptian from the 12th century. Even though she didn't get it, she got pretty close. And she is there on her land. Is this another case of another life, a past life? Reincarnation. Is this possible? I believe it may be possible. The human body is made of electrons, electricity in a sense, right? Put it to you this way. Let's just say when your soul leaves your body or the energy leaves your body, who's to say that your soul or your energy is not some kind of, let's just put it in modern terms, like an SD card or some kind of memory card, right? In other words, you can take that card out and put it into another computer, and it's going to read out everything that you have on that card, right? So let's just say that energy goes into another body. Who's to say that that body cannot read the memory that was implanted for that short amount of time or long periods of time? It's just something to think about. It's a possibility of the unknown, right? And this is what this story is. It's a very unknown. Because I don't think we'll ever figure this one out. It's a great story. If you have a chance, go back. Read up on it. I'll add some links to it, to a few of her videos on this podcast. I thought it was a very, very interesting story. There's a lot of information there. This poor woman endured all this her whole life just to get to the end of the light, knowing that she still fulfilled her destiny. And yes, I believe she was far from home. She's home now. Hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. I really did. Great story, man. Great story. But I really appreciate each and every one of you. So if you guys can share this podcast, if you really enjoyed it, subscribe, click a heart, whichever platform you're using, iHeartRadio, Spotify, Deezer, it doesn't matter, Amazon, everything that's out there. If you see Alien Strand podcast on there, click a heart on there, follow, click a thumbs up on everything that you see there. If you go to Alien Strand podcast, they're on Facebook. Please like, share. You know, we're on YouTube as well. We have a few videos there. Click a like and subscribe there as well. We really appreciate everything. You know, everything that comes in is great. You know, we're trying to just keep the information flowing. And, you know, we got this new studio, building it as we go. And I hope you really guys enjoy this content. It's been my pleasure of being here today. And I really appreciate each and every one of you. So remember, keep your eyes in the sky. Keep your head in the books. Always read and get the information, as many articles as you can. because knowledge is power, right? The more you know, the better it is, the better you look as well. So, and that's what Alien Strand is about here as well. We're sharing the information, not just of UFOs, but everything that happened, in the past as well, as far as this story as well. So it's a great story. I'm glad you guys stuck around. But until then, you guys have yourselves a good day. Have yourselves a good evening. And have yourselves a good night.
What's up, guys? This is Mike Beavers from The Theory, and you are listening to Alien Strand Podcast, the dopest UFO alien podcast out there. And if you want to find out about me, just go on YouTube and search UFOs over UFO or The Theory with Mike Beavers. Stay tuned, guys.